And because you only own 49%, they own 51% or more. The local party leaders, you know, these are like mafioso dons, I'm told. You have to go and lay your entire blueprint on the table, including the technology, and they will have their experts open it right up.
Yes, they just steal it. Well, listen, I'm with you, Larry.
That's wrong.
You introduced me to
I just want to. This is such an important point.
But you're sounding like a person you debate all the time with us, Peter Navarro. This is exactly what it sounds like. Versus, say, what you said in March 15th of 2010 on Kudlow Report, when you said, I believe the history here is that when we try to put the pressure on China in a public overt action, they don't like that. They revolt. We have to deal with them behind the scenes. It sounds like that you've come much more closer to what Peter used to always argue.
Actually, I have. Okay.
You have.
Over the last
big change, because you debated. I mean, I caught dozens of interviews with Peter.
It's taken a while for me to do this, but yes, I've come to that view because I think the problem's getting worse. I really do. I'm not a big trade deficit guy. Okay, balance of payments. You can argue, you know, you buy the goods, but the capital comes back in. But it is odd to me, through thick and thin, whatever the stage of the business cycle, our deficit with China continues to expand. There's something wrong there.
But at the same time, Larry, you did say once that consumers are so happy to buy reasonable quality, low-priced goods from China. This is what you taught me, that a tariff hurts the American consumer. Sometimes it's better just to subsidize the industry that's in bad shape, because you've always said to me there's 300 million Americans that benefit from no tariffs. That couldn't have changed for you.
So I have a solution.
Okay.
America is the lowest tariff country in the world. I mean, there may be New Zealand or something, smaller countries, not to demean them. But of the major countries, we are the lowest tariff country in the world. Our average tariff, I think, is about 2.5%. Now, China's average tariff is about 14%. It was worse, but they haven't made any progress lately. By the way, Europe's is also rising. So look, here's my solution. And the president agrees with this. Lower your barriers. All right? I want to help American consumers and business. Yes, yes, yes. Full choice. If they lower their tariff barriers and they lower their non-tariff barriers and open markets, we will export like crazy because America has become the most competitive economy in the world. Give us a chance. I went to Beijing with our team, and when China came to the USA, I was involved in those discussions in the dinner. I sat next to Liu He and his young assistants, and I think they're sincere. Okay, so there's hope. On the other hand, I do not think President Xi, at the moment, has any intention of following through on the discussions we've made. And I think the president is so dissatisfied with China on these so-called talks that he is keeping the pressure on, and I support that.
Would you want tariff on all $500 billion that we trade with?
No,
I mean, there's not much left. Should we just ratchet it up?
You know, we have to be careful there. That you can put pressure on, which is what the president's doing, and he's a pretty good deal maker, as you know. On the other hand, they will come at our companies in China.
They'll come at Apple. I know you talked to Tim Cook.
Well, particularly the joint venture companies.
Okay.
And Apple's not one of them.
Right.
They have already done that. I mean, for example, Hollywood companies, just these movies. Chinese love American movies, all right? God bless them. I think our movie makers take home 25% of the revenues. China's government takes the rest? Huh? That's crazy. That stuff has to be fixed. We can't let China steal our technology, Jimmy. Those are our family jewels. What is it that makes America the greatest economy in the world? It is our innovative and inventive use of technological advances. This is Schumpeter, gales of creative destruction writ large. We can't let them do that. They haven't responded at all, not one basis point, to our request to do something about the theft of intellectual property and the forced divestiture of our technology.
What are you telling the president in order how to get them to change their ways? This is obviously unacceptable to the American people and unacceptable to the world economy.
I agree. By the way, the whole world agrees with us.
Right.
I mean, Europe agrees with us, Canada, everyone knows this is true. By the way, our sources, now I have a lot of sources in China, are telling us that the Chinese government realizes they're wrong. Okay, I hear this repeatedly from my sources, and yet, as of today, they refuse to act on it. They know they're wrong. They know the rest of the world knows they're wrong. I call it the trade coalition of the willing, and something has to be done here. Now, for POTUS, let me just make a point. I'm going to defend him here, lock, stock, and barrel. We've had Republican and Democratic presidents in the past make these complaints to China, even take these complaints to the World Trade Organization, okay? But they never follow through. They say it, nothing happens, life goes on, the situation gets worse. You follow?
Yes.
This guy, President Trump, has the biggest backbone. This is one of the things I admire about him in this and other places. He will not let go of this point. He will not.
So I want to be clear because
nor should he, in my opinion. And China's going to have to come around. I am an optimist,
but remember, Secretary of Treasury Mnuchin has
solvable.
often indicated that this can work out, that there has been movement. It sounds like there's been no movement by the Chinese, and yet you have to step it up if you're going to get them to change.
Well, we will see, on the tactics, okay? But your point is well taken. Steve Mnuchin is a good friend. We are allies. We are essentially free traders in the administration. That's no secret. Speak to him almost every day. So, yeah, we're optimists. All right. I believe, from my experience, 2 days in Beijing, a day in Washington, D.C., and a long dinner in Washington, D.C., I believe China wants to make a deal.
Okay.
Okay? So it's out there.
You really do?
I do.
Okay.
But,
and your sources within China are indicating that there could be more.
That is correct. But insofar as we know, President Xi, at the moment, does not wish to make a deal. Now, I'd love to be wrong on that. President Trump has a good relationship with him, as he's spoken. We are working together in numerous ways with respect to North Korea. So hope springs, the communications continue. But I think Xi is holding the game up. I think Liu He and others would like to move and haven't. Wilbur Ross went over there and $70 billion in commodities. Heck, that's where we were when we all went to Beijing in the first place. So I think he needs to move. We are waiting for him. The ball is in his court. And the tit-for-tat business, which is nobody's favorite path, but nonetheless, they can end that this afternoon by providing a more satisfactory approach. And essentially, Jimmy, doing what the rest of the world knows needs to be done. Well, tariffs down, non-tariff barriers down, IP theft, no. Allow the American or British or whomever, German, full ownership of the companies operating in China. And let me make one last point here, because I think there's confusion. People say, well, Trump is doing it. President Trump inherited this mess and a broken trading system. If you talk to him, as I have, so many times in the last 3 or 4 months, and I wrote an op-ed piece about this in the Washington Post, the first day of G7. He sees himself as a free trader. People don't get this. Don't blame Trump. Blame China, please. Blame Europe, who's going down the wrong road. He sees himself as a free trader. He has said in the Group of Seven and since, I was there fixing the communique, let's have no tariffs. Let's have no tariff barriers. Let's have no subsidies. Let's have a tariff-free trade system. That's his view.
Well, but at the same time, Larry, he has been instrumental. But
he's got to protect the country.
Right, but let's take NAFTA, for instance.
Yes.
You have a 4-to-1 ratio with the peso when it's created. It's now 19-to-1. That is a trade barrier in itself.
Yes.
Do we need, how do we adjust NAFTA? How do we make it so that American commerce isn't hurt? Jay Powell yesterday said the countries that have remained open to trade, that haven't erected barriers, including tariffs, have grown faster. They have had higher incomes, higher productivity. And countries that have gone in a more protectionist direction have done worse. Empirical result. Worried about NAFTA? Start raising barriers, raise a wall, have them pay for the wall.
Jay Powell's right. Look, I'm a card-carrying free trader. I'm so simple. Lower tax rates. Roll back regulations, keep the dollar steady, and free trade advances. That's me. That's a pro-growth solution. Jay's 100% right. By the way, Jay Powell's doing a great job over there, in my opinion. we're talking to Mexico.
Okay.
Unlike China, we're having very productive
very different.
talks with
Okay,
Mexico.
very more constructive.
Robert Lighthizer is our trade ambassador. Is a good man. He and I were children during the Reagan administration years ago. So I can report, without specifics, I can report good progress on Mexico. So that could be a very promising avenue.
Okay, again, the stocks are saying that is absolutely the case. I want to talk about inflation.
Yes.
And why you can be optimistic about inflation despite the fact that we've got a high budget deficit. And again, why is the 2-year, 10-year in such an odd frame versus what I've come to expect you to be able to come up with an answer for all these things?
Okay. Good barrel full of questions here. Let me do the best I can in limited time. I get that. Kudlow axiom. You've heard this a zillion times before. Economic growth does not cause inflation. More people working and producing do not cause inflation. Okay? Bad money, excess money, a sinking currency, and you'll see it fast in the markets, as you well know, bond markets, commodity markets, whatever. I don't see it. And I'm very happy that the Fed is independent. I made some remarks a few weeks ago. It's not aimed against the Fed. I support what Jay Powell is doing. I'm just saying I believe the new management at the Fed does understand that by itself, economic growth, particularly what I call supply-side growth, where you're increasing the economy's potential, more capital spending, more investment, more productivity, right? That's not inflationary.
No, so why raise lockstep if the truth is that we're just beginning to get to certain parts of this country to get some of these workers more money? It's just happening now, just the last 3 quarters.
I agree. I think, again, I don't want to spend a lot of time critiquing the Fed because I basically agree with what they're doing.
Well, then is the 10-year wrong?
But I think their gradualist approach is very good.
Okay.
I do. I think it's very good. And I think that approach, by the way, will get things done rather more quickly instead of holding it out. Now, regarding the spread, actually, we're reading the spread wrong. Okay, this is an interesting point. I want to give a hat tip to my friend and colleague and former anchor and so forth, Ron Insana, who is no fan of Trump. I think he and I get along very well. He wrote me beautifully when I was in the hospital. I love the guy. But Ron wrote a good article. He went back and looked at the yield curve model from the New York Fed, which was done by this chap Estrella, who's now teaching up at RPI. It's actually not 10s to 2s. It's 10s to 3-month Treasury bills. Very important. And I actually went and got the model. The New York Fed is still publishing the model. The spread is flatter, but it's 100 basis points or so.
Okay.
It's not 20 or 30. That's
right.
very important. So it was 10s to the 91-day bill. This is Professor Estrada. And so from his work, the probability of a U.S. recession predicted by the spread over the next year is only 12.5% through the month of June, 12.5%. So I think people are making too much of the 10s to 2s. Watch the 10s to 91 days. Now, every recession has been led by an inverted curve, 10s to the 3-month bill. And you can look this up. I think Estrella still has, he's at RPI, okay. I think he has his website. But the New York Fed is still publishing it. And I give hat tip to Ron Insana, who wrote this up on it. We found it on the CNBC website. So, good for you and good for Ron.
Do you think the steel tariffs and aluminum tariffs have worked? Have they worked?
There's no recession in sight.
Okay.
I just want to make